What's up? This is Willie Mack, and you're watching Wrestling with Regret.
Hey everybody, Zane here. Last week I interviewed some Glow alumni to get their thoughts on the critically acclaimed Netflix series of the same name. Though most of the women I spoke with thought the show had some redeeming qualities, there were also some elements that turned them off to it. This week I'm speaking with some more ladies of Glow to get their thoughts on the matter. My guests this week are Little Egypt, Godiva, and Hollywood. So ladies, I'll begin by asking the same question I asked your colleagues last week. How did you find out about the Netflix series, and how did you react to the news?
I first saw it on social media as fans and whatnot were posting auditions for the new Glow show, and Jenji Cohen is involved, and probably the earliest press releases. I was stoked. All that could happen from this is that it will point people back to us original girls, and I'm also a huge fan of the writers and producers of the Glow show, and loved their previous work and knew they were going to do something special with it. Their team is very known for making very fleshed out, interesting female characters, and I love that because there's so not enough of that on television.
So I know that I probably found out at the exact same time everybody else found out. This was a tight set. There was one Glow consultant on the set. It was Ursula, the trademark holder. So even with that being said, there was not any communication between the original cast and the writers and the showrunners and everyone affiliated with the program. I started following IMDb to see who was getting cast, and then started following them on Twitter. But it wasn't until they actually aired that I got to see how they were going to write the story.
About maybe a year and a half ago, found out, and my reaction was, yes, finally they're going to do something with Glow. That's the first reaction. Second is, are we going to be involved? Please.
One of the common threads I picked up on from last week's interview was this overall feeling of disappointment over the fact that there were no original Glow women outside of the trademark holder, Ursula Hayden, consulted during the production of this show. Did you guys feel the same way?
Yeah, not being involved. First of all, I did the pilot on all 4 seasons, so I had stunt coordinators and actresses who were being interviewed asking, why is Hollywood from Glow not here? And their reaction, their response was, we don't want to deal with the legal. And I'm like, 30 some years ago, what legal are they talking about? Where are they going to get all the info? Because Ursula wasn't there during the pilot. So that was a bummer that because there's so much to talk about, and it's the truth.
Well, as I started following the articles that were getting written by Vanity Fair, and they started interviewing the writers of the show, was where I was able to see the reasoning behind the way that they put together this dramedy.
They said, they didn't want a lot of outside influence because they wanted to create their own story, and they've won Emmys. It's not a documentary, so they don't need to know Godiva's story. They took the idea of us and really created their own characters and their own story. I don't blame them for doing that as artists. That's their right to do.
But where they found their inspiration was the documentary, Glow, the story of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. And that's when the writers saw the documentary. They sent an email to Jenji Cohen, said, what do you think about doing a series on women's wrestling? She replied, yes. And now Glow is back on. Our documentary, Glow, the story of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, is back on Netflix. So if you want to really go down this Glow rabbit hole, if you really want to understand and appreciate the dramedy that's on Netflix right now, watch the documentary first. That's where the inspiration came from. And yeah, there's confusion, I'm sure, maybe, and frustration because it's not historically accurate, but this is, a different time. So it's a different audience.
So when you watched the show, what'd you think?
I had chills on my legs. I loved it. I thought that the writing was really well done. Dramedy, lots of drama, some comedy. I watched myself in some of those characters doing those same things, learning how to fall. It was very funny when you're going to take a back bump or jump off a rope like Debbie Gilpin was trying to jump off and she was afraid. And so that was similar. But watching it for the first time, I'd watch it again, which I want to just to catch other things. I thought they did a really good job. I thought the writers did a wonderful job portraying those actresses who are actresses in wrestling.
What I loved about the show was that they were short episodes, so it was kind of fun. It always kept you wanting to see the next episode. I loved the music that they were using. I thought that had to cost them a fortune, but it was so worth it. I loved that in episode, I think it was episode number 7, sports montage. When was the last time you've seen a sports montage? That was so funny.
I loved it. I loved it. My biggest question before I binge watched it in 2 sittings was, how are they going to, in 2017, how are they going to approach some of the super politically incorrect things that happened on the Glow show in 1985.
We were so politically incorrect. There was a match with Matilda, Hollywood Vine, and they came out with swastikas on to fight Mount Fiji and Americana and Little Fiji in the ring, and it was just, we knew how to prick an audience.
Okay, so let's dive back into that stuff you were saying was politically incorrect. A couple of times during the series, there'd be moments where characters would stand up to the producer or the director and say, "This character you gave me doesn't feel right." Did that kind of stuff ever happen in real life?
No. No, we didn't get that kind of input. When Welfare Queen walked into the office and was like, "Hey, I have a son at Stanford," that conversation didn't happen.
I don't remember many girls standing up. They gave you your character and you had to figure it out. I know that I did.
My job as Little Egypt was to come out, imagine 19 years old, okay? I'm supposed to be the one that comes out and seduces the men in the audience. Like, are you kidding? I'm 19 years old. I don't even date. I married the first guy that asked me out, and we're still married to this day. So I'm not the one that's going to be the best seducer out there, but as a good girl, my job was to come out and belly dance. Of course, you love your good girls, and you're there to hate the bad girls.
So your thoughts on the show seem to be more or less positive, but was there anything going on in the Netflix series that you felt they got wrong about Glow, or anything that made you stand up and say, "Hey, that's not right"?
Again, since it's not a documentary, I can't really say they got stuff wrong. There wasn't Matt Cimber didn't do drugs. That was very fictionalized. We did not have a director that was boozing it up at all. But I understand why they made Sam like that. It was the 80s. There was drugs. I mean, I loved when a bunch of my colleagues came out and said there were no drugs. I'm like, of course there were drugs. there was drugs everywhere in the 80s.
We all talk about the drug use because right away it was instilled into our brains. If you showed up on the set drunk, high, you were fired immediately. And, for me, I was there to work. So to show the drug use and then at the party, the machine that's pulling out the Coke, that was weird. I'm like, no, that's not how it happened. We didn't live in a motel. I'm like, no, it's not a Roach Motel. We lived, for the first season, the first 2 seasons, we were at the Riviera Hotel. There was a bigger budget going on there, so they made it look way low budget.
I don't know how much closer you need to get to our characters to be comfortable and to finally be okay with watching the Glow series. What do you want, an exact replica? Who are we trying to please? We have a new audience, Brian, and this is our chance to be able to reach out to a new audience and intrigue them into going down a Glow rabbit hole. This is where the legacy is hiding, in the rabbit hole. The Glow Netflix, in my opinion, is entertainment. It is loosely based. It is not historical. You want historical representation? Watch the Glow documentary. You want to be thoroughly entertained in today's standards? Go watch the Glow series.
In my opinion, one of the more fascinating things about this series was the depiction of the director, Sam Silva, played by Mark Maron, and just how different he seemed to be compared to the real-life director of Glow, Matt Cimber. I mean, the women last week spoke in great detail about how he's not at all in real life like he was depicted in this show. Can you guys elaborate more on those differences?
I feel like Sam Silva was very much a softened version of Matt. Matt wasn't as interested in the relationships like Sam was on the show when he started getting closer to Ruth and starting to care about her.
I knew that he wasn't looking for our feedback. He wasn't looking to have discussions with us. Like at the end of a match, when we were getting ready to get the new matches for the next week, there were some girls that thought, they could raise their hands and tell Matt how they felt. And it was like, he's not looking for that. He doesn't want to know how you felt.
Matt was hardcore. There was no time. You didn't interrupt him, okay? You didn't say da-da-da-da. It was his way. You didn't open your mouth. Matt would say what he felt like. I didn't even know at the time if Matt really, I thought he hated women, seriously. He treated us, and everyone will tell you that, and God bless him, but he was an ass.
I do love the Sam Silva character. I'm smelling Emmy all over that guy. But a little different than Matt, for sure.
Now, Hollywood, as you mentioned, you were there for all 4 seasons of Glow, which means you worked with David McLane before he left the promotion at the end of season 2 to form the POW League. Talk to me more about his relationship with Matt Cimber, and how close was that relationship to what they showed on the Netflix series between Sam Silva, the director, and Bash Howard, the producer?
He was a lot nicer. Mark Maron was very nice to Bash. But it was similar because David McLane came from this wrestling background only. And now we've got Matt Cimber coming in for the director part of it. So you're putting the director idea and film and actresses into this wrestling thing. And Matt he really had to kind of talk David into, let's add some comedy into this. Let's make it funny. And so that's where you get that hee-haw type of vibe in there. Bash was not wrestling, though. You know what I mean? He's this rich kid living in Malibu and, living the dream. David worked really hard at getting his wrestling show on television.
Well, ladies, any final thoughts or hopes for season 2?
I know there was some talk about seeing more and better wrestling. And these girls are actresses who learned how to take bumps for their role. So I think the wrestling's going to step up next season. I'm looking forward to that. I
am looking forward to season 2. If we're not there, we're not there. I'm going to be a big supporter of it because I loved Glow. I lived and breathed it for 4 years. So whatever they come up with, I'm sure will be great. Bring in some cameos with the Glow Girls would be lovely.
I am just so thankful that over $35 million was spent to produce it and $10 million in advertising. Thank you. Thank you, Genji Cohen, award-winning producer. Thank you. I love it. I just encourage everyone to formulate their own opinions based on information that's available to you right now. The series is on Netflix, the documentary is on Netflix, and go enjoy the YouTube videos and then come up with your own decision. Whatever it is, I support it. There is no right or wrong. Thank you, Brian.
Well, thanks to you, Little Egypt, along with Godiva and Hollywood for doing this interview with me. Now, if you missed part 1 of this series, I recommend you go back and check that out. But if you want even more detail about what these ladies thought about the show, go to AfterBuzz TV and look up their Glow After Show reviews. Every week, Little Egypt was hosting the show alongside some original Glow girls and some cast members from the Netflix series to give their thoughts about each episode. You can find it by searching AfterBuzz TV Glow on YouTube. Let me know what you guys thought about the Netflix series and these interviews in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and next week, Nacho Libre.